You ready, Pastor Lyndon?
Okay, go ahead, Pastor DeVoe. Let's start the live stream.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Happy that you are here with us this afternoon for this very important subject as we have Pastor Lyndon share with us. And so we want to begin with a word of prayer. Let us bow for a word of prayer. Loving Father in heaven, we thank you for the inspiration that we receive today already in our divine service. We pray that the same Spirit that was with us during the divine service will be with us this afternoon. We thank you for the wisdom, the knowledge that you've given to Pastor Williams so that he can research and delve into these important subjects that will help us to be more discerning and more responsible as we encounter different questions and concerns that persons may have. Thank you for all those that would have come, and we pray that at the end of this sitting, that all of us will be further enhanced with the information that will help us in our Christian walk. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Good evening, everyone. The streaming live from the New Angleton Seventh-day Adventist Church. And this is one of the quarterly present Spirit of Prophecy coordinating, and the Spirit of Prophecy coordinating. This is one of the quarterly presentations that we're doing today. Today, our focus will be on the Ellen White's view in particular, but I'll be doing a brief overview of the health message of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and a particular focus on Ellen White's view as it relates to drugs, pharmaceuticals, etc. And one of the things that when it comes to certain positions that we take within the Adventist Church, very often individuals look to the pen of inspiration, as we say, as what would Ellen White have to say about this or that particular thing. And so that is something I will also be sharing with you. And so to begin, I'm going to give a brief, quick overview for those of you who are not too familiar, new to the faith or not Seventh Adventists, as to what we believe about Seventh-day, about Ellen White. And with that, I have the fundamental belief number 18, which reads, so let's share my screen, please. Okay. I don't know what's happening here, but I'm going to start this over. Just bear with us. We seem to be having some technical problems. Okay, we remove it from the broadcast. Let's see what's happening. John. Okay,
Add
we
that
add
to
that
the
to the
stream.
stream.
Take
Take
off
off
the
the
other
other
individuals. Just keep mine up went on. Mine
Mine
should be
should
the
be the
only
only
one on
one
the
on the
screen.
screen.
The
The
camera.
camera.
So
So
let's
let's
start
start
with
with
Adventist
Adventist
Health
Health
Ministries.
Ministries.
Add
Add
that to
that
the
to the
stream.
stream.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay, so here's the website of the General Conference. Can we just put up the shared slide and move the picture off? Thank you. As it relates to our Health Ministries Department, the Seventh-day Adventist Church believes that which it votes in session or through its various executive committees, etc., that determines what Seventh-day Adventists believe. It is not what someone necessarily says. It is a body that works together through various committees, etc. They look at all of the information and they make decisions right from there. And so this here is healthministries.com for those of you who cannot see it. And here you have a number of resources: who we are, our history, you have mission. What is the mission of the Health Ministries Department? You have all of that there. I'm going to go through some of this. You can look at it. The philosophy of the Health Ministries Department. Ministry of Healing, by which persons can be restored to wholeness, reflecting on the life of Christ. And they emphasize certain things there, but the four principles in which they operate by: the Word of God. We believe the Word of God is the very best guide to making wise choices in every area of life and health. Scripture speaks eloquently on the wide variety of health topics and reveals a loving God who wants to give his children life more abundantly. We are also very grateful for the application of biblical health principles, in the writing of Ellen White. And you see evidence. We operate under the conviction God is the author of all true science. We respect evidence-based health science, which stands up to the rigors of careful examination, analysis, according to accepted scientific principles. We believe this is vital in a world filled with misinformation and falsehood. Balance. We are holistic beings. A balanced approach in life is essential to health. This involves avoiding harmful practices, using wisely, carefully the best things in life. Even good things can be taken to excess. Therefore, deeply committed to the physical, mental, social, spiritual balance to support health, happiness, and healing. And then finally, relationships. Spiritual support are essential to God's health and human flourishing. Cultivating positive relationships with God, family members, friends, community members will play a significant role in our personal health, productivity, ability to help others. So basically what it's saying is that the health message is something that is well balanced, it's rounded, it's a rounded approach. One thing I want to emphasize here, and that is number 2. We operate under the conviction that God is the author of all true science. Therefore, we respect evidence-based health science, which stands up to the rigors of careful examination and analysis. The mic from my computer should not be coming through. Don't allow that to come through. All the mics should come from the sound system. According to accepted scientific principles, we believe this is vital in a world filled with misinformation and falsehood. So basically what they're saying is that we look at something and we go through it extensively. If I use something and it worked for me, it does not mean that it's going to work for everyone. That there is critical. Understanding that principle, because it works for one, That's no guarantee it will work for everyone else. And that is important to understand, because you would not want a doctor who gives a medicine to person A, and they get better, whether or not it's the medicine or the treatment. To say, okay, this worked with A, therefore I must give it to everyone else. You cannot do that. You have to look at a number of persons, look at underlying conditions with medications they're taking, etc. Look at all of that and then determine if it is vital for everyone. And that basis with several individuals, then a larger study. You look at where you have anomalies, you read out, is it the medication or the treatment that is causing anomalies, or was it something else? And you go through a vigorous process, and then they can say, okay, this can work for everyone, and these are side effects. That's the basis on which we use today. So I'm going to, okay, share something else I want you to see. Oh, power went off. For those of you online, we just lost our power. We're still trying to come back up. Here we go. So, fundamental belief number 18, which I started to explain. The Seventh-day Adventist Church say that the scriptures testify okay, we're there now. The scriptures testify that one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit is prophecy. This gift is an identifying mark of the remnant church, and we believe it was manifested in the ministry of Ellen G. White. Her writings speak with prophetic authority and provide comfort, guidance, instruction, and correction to the church. They also make clear that the Bible is the standard by which all teaching and experience must be tested. And these are the passages of scripture that would relate to it. The next thing I want us to look at as we look at this is interpreting Ellen White. There are several resources I want to draw your attention to. And I'm going to try to see how easily we can get this done. Which means I'll have to share screen again. And I'll be drawing on several references. The first one is egwritings.org. I will place it in the YouTube chat. That's the first one I want us to be aware of. egwritings.org. Basically, this is all of Ellen White's books or anything that she has ever written during her lifetime that we have access to in various languages. Some of it is translated in different languages, and that's what this column on the left here is showing you. And you can see there are a number of languages. Not all of the books are found in all of the languages, but as many as they have, they've been publishing. And this you can search to find anything that is written. She wrote in English, therefore most of it is in English. Some of it have been translated. On this section here, you see her life works. You can search her life works, or the compilations, whereby she left instructions for persons who would operate as us, directors of the White Estate, to gather her writings which had not been published and compile them on various subjects. And we have several books which are what we call compilations. So for example, Adventist Home is one of them. Normally it's checked to search all. The next one that I would like to draw your attention to is ellenwhite.org. And this is the official site of the White Estate. No, this is, sorry, another one which is being developed, and they've changed it So they will tell you try beta.lny.org. Again, I will post a link in the chat for you on YouTube. Beta.lny.org is the second one, where you can again look at our writings, and they try to find the best fit, I guess, why they have all the different sites that you can look at. I just discovered this one literally yesterday when I went to LNY, and they said try beta. So they're trying to improve it for service to the community. And as you can see, they have the writings again in different languages, Hebrew, whatever. I guess over a period of time, they will be translating it into all the different languages that it has not been translated as yet. Another one is White Estate that you need to be familiar with. But before I go there, because there's something here, I want you to go to this one here, which is play.google.org. And so I will share that one with you. If you can find all of our writings in the Google Play Store, for those of you who are not familiar with it, and that is what I will be pulling up on the screen for you at this point. When you go to the Play Store, you're looking for EGW Writings 2. Let's share that, please. Add it to the stream. Thank you. EGW Writings 2 is what you're looking for. And you want to get this one. This is the latest one. They've reworked it, so this is better. And it works with the later operating systems. I don't know if it works with the older ones also. You can download it on your phone, your tablet. It's free of charge. And you can read researcher writings. You also have it available in the iOS store, so to speak. You can get it from there if you so choose. And there are several other sites that I'm sharing with you. You have the Play Store. You also have the Adventist bookstore. Where you can find, this is called the Ellen White Encyclopedia. This is the most recent one. And I'll show you what this looks like in a short while, where they have gone through her writings and they have helped to pull up information on a particular topic. There's a topical index to Ellen White's writings, but this is an encyclopedia which does the same thing. Some will say not as good, others, but either case, you still have the topical writings, topical index to all of her writings. And this here is available in, this is a print copy. You have it in electronic format. For those of you who prefer the electronic format, you can also see it there. I'm not going to tell you, but you'll figure out very quickly that that is my preferred method because I can tote it around with me. This is the electronic format where you can just download it on your computer, tablet, whatever the case might be. So this is the other one that you can also see it here. No, sorry, that's how Life Works. But the encyclopedia is also in the electronic format through Logos Bible software. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip that and just move on. That's how Life Works collections. Let's go back to the so I'm going back to the software now. Except it has decided I've shared enough. Okay, here we go. For some reason, StreamYard has its own mind today. It's not pulling up some of my information. I'm trying to share my Bible software and it's not allowing me to. So let's try something else. Okay, add that to the stream for me. Okay, that's not going to work either. Okay, we're back. Here we go. So, what we're looking at now, in understanding the writings of Ellen White, we first need to begin to look at how God speaks to an individual. That's going to be important. If you go to whiteestate.org and you pull up the section that's called Issues and Answers, there's something there I would encourage you to and I'm going to pull this one up. It's White Estate. Okay, here we go. So let's share it once again. You click on the tab right here, Issues and Answers. And I would encourage anyone to start here. Start with this one. What it does is it gives you a basic framework or understanding as to how to interpret an inspired writer. An inspired, I put Ellen White in the category of being inspired. Just like how you had other prophets in the Bible who did not write, who don't have books in the Bible, like Nathan or Jad, the seer, and so many others. This is what we're dealing with. This section here, if you go through it, will help with a lot of the misunderstandings that people have. There are some Adventists who want nothing to do with Ellen White. They get thrown under the bus. And a lot of it has to do with the wrong understanding of inspiration. If you understand the way inspiration works with the scriptures, the same principles apply to the writings of Ellen White or any, any inspired writer. That's what I'm trying to say there. And so we need to understand that principle there. Go through it. I will encourage you. Look it up. And you will begin to understand how God leads. How does he operate through them? It is not, I got a vision, now time to write. That happens at times. Very often, they did research, like in Luke and Acts, said he had to do research. Sometimes they had assistants. Paul had secretaries who assisted him. We see that in the New Testament. Other times they used literature to help them express. So when we look at Revelation, I'll be dealing with that tomorrow with the 7 trumpets. You notice that John quotes heavily from the Old Testament in describing what he saw in vision. Was that what was given, or did he just draw upon it? We don't know. But there's a process in which we have. And if you look at this very quickly, you will see some basic principles. Ellen White, understanding of how God speaks, the dynamic of inspiration, and you click on them and they lead you to additional material. I've covered quite a bit of this with the church before, but go over it. You can read it for yourself. The historian model, when Paul says, I don't have no direct counsel from the Lord, but here's my advice anyway. Do you throw that piece of the Bible or do you accept it? All of these are things that we need to look at and things that we must, someone says, wrestle with. So I want us to begin to go through that. So, having taken you there, we're going back into our document for today. And I'll be moving between the two, so you'll just have to bear with me. The first one is this here. The Story of Our Health Message by D.E. Robinson. I will post a link in the chat. How did we get to where we are today is the question that persons often ask. How did the Adventist health message develop? The story of our health message by one of Ellen White's secretaries details that to a large degree. And you know what the good part is? It's free to view online. And that's something I want us, because again, we need to understand when we say the Advent message or health message, what do we actually mean? Many persons misunderstand that. What is our health message? I took you to the General Conference website. I encourage you to go through a lot of it and read and see. The Adventist Church believes that which it votes, that which it decides. That is what the Adventist Church believes, not necessarily what I say, not necessarily what you say, but what she decides and she votes on. And that's that happens in a way where you have input from around the world. That's the gist of it. Persons from around the world will come together and they meet and they discuss, and they will refer maybe to another committee who meet and critique it and add and subtract and look at it until finally it goes to General Conference or the Executive Committee, and they look at it and they iron it out and they add and they subtract and they modify and they vote it and they send it out to the rest of the world church. That's the process upon which we decide on decisions for the church. One common example, the ordination of women. Some brethren felt it should do, some felt it should not do. The church met, it discussed, and they voted. They may change that decision later on. But if or until or when that decision is changed, the official position of the church is, we will not ordain women to the gospel ministry. They may decide to change that later on. But until it is done, if it is done, that is the official position of the church. And that is the official position that we have to take with our health message. It's a holistic method. One of our pioneering institutions is Loma Linda, who uses a combination, from what I understand, of methods in the treatment of health. Underneath this here, I have something on ministry of healing, and I'm going to pull that up. And I chose this one. This was a book that she compiled, I would say, even though it has a copyright of 2014, I don't know. But this was written during her lifetime in 1905. And even this is really a compilation of information that had been printed, written, added to, etc., that she had done during her lifetime. 1905, she died in 1915. What I want you to see, no, let's do it from this way. The diversity of topics that we find here. Who is a true medical missionary? Our example, personal ministry, days of ministry, parental responsibility. She talks about the barley loaves and fishes with Christ, with nature and with God, the touch of faith. Look at the diversity of the topics. She's dealing with healing, the work of the physician, the source of healing, the physician and educator, need of education and health principles, natural remedies, streaming of life's principles, the physician and the temperance work, teaching health principles. I'm going to pull this one up. Gospel workers should be able to give instruction in the principles of healthful living. Before you can give principles, you must know it. Then she talks about, and I'm coming to this, methods that are taking thousands need and would gladly receive instruction concerning the simple methods of treating the sick, methods that are taking the place of the use of poisonous drugs. In interpretation, we call it hermeneutics. That's a big word. Hermeneutics means the science of interpretation. You must look at what the individual was talking about in order to understand how to apply it today. If you do not understand how world, and for some reason I couldn't find my books to show you, but be that as it may, there are 3 or 4 books that George Knight wrote I would encourage you to get. Ellen White's World, Meeting Ellen White, Walking with Ellen White. What was life like during her time? When she wrote in a particular context. She wrote about things to a particular people, so you have to understand that context before you can broadly apply it to our context today. And we're going to look at that. And so, What I'm basically saying is this: we have to look at what was drugs like in her day. Is it the same in our day? Do the principles apply? The way they treated people in her day, do they apply to our day? What are the similarities? What are the differences? I decided to pull this one up. And you may say I'm being mischievous, and that's true. First time I wrote on Ellen White, I did this, and I didn't give an explanation in the logos, and I left it deliberately because I wanted to get people thinking that you have to look at the context and bring all of the counsels together. I also encourage people to, when you read, look at it in chronological order, the order in which it was written. That's important. So, for example, going back to the scriptures, the first mention of a Messiah was Genesis 3:15, if I remember correctly, that the seed of the woman would crush the head of the serpent. That was it. God gave no further instruction as far as we have the biblical record reveals to Adam and Eve. Later on in Genesis 49, about there, Jacob said, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor lawgiver between his feet until Shiloh come. So they understood the Messiah would come from the tribe of Judah. Later on, we understood Ephrathah, Bethlehem. We understood later on from the house of David. They understood later on that he would be born of a virgin. And so the revelation of knowledge is progressive. Truth is static. It is there. The understanding of truth is progressive. That applied to the biblical writers, as I just showed you with the understanding of the work of the Messiah. It also would apply to Ellen White's understanding of health and the message that God was giving her. God does not give, very seldom does God give someone everything right away. So what was Daniel told? Go your way. Basically, the message is sealed in Daniel 12. You'll rest with your fathers. Later on, we understood the prophecies better than Daniel understood them because they have been fulfilled. So we have a better understanding when he talks about who is this nondescript beast, this dragon-like with claws and iron. And Daniel couldn't fathom that. There was no animal. We understand it represented Rome because Rome came afterwards. So that's the way God usually works when he reveals something. He doesn't give you everything at once. So therefore, understand Ellen White's writings, one, in their literary context. What was happening when she wrote? What was she referring to? Whom was she writing to? And why was she writing to? Once you master that there, those are the basics. You apply that to scripture the same way. You gain a much better understanding as to how to apply it. Look at what she says here. And tell me if you are willing to go home and do this. I have received light. Let me make it a little larger. That you are injuring your body by a poverty-stricken diet. It is a lack of suitable food that has caused you to suffer so keenly. You have not taken the food essential to nourish your frail physical strength. You must not deny yourself of good, wholesome food. Get eggs of healthy fowl. Use these eggs cooked or raw. Drop them uncooked into the best unfermented wine you can find. This will supply that which is necessary to your system. Eggs contain properties which are remedial agencies in counteracting poisons. Now, what I would encourage you to do, Google it, but I'll tell you, the basis was this. You had a fellow who was walking your street selling books. We call them literature evangelists. And he read where Ellen White says, you eat too much. So he cut down his meals from 3 meals to 2 meals. But the problem was, he was relying on the equivalent of what they call some granola bars with the granola oat or whatever wheat, grain product that is and whatever they made. But then he read it again. You eat too much. And his health was deteriorating. This is a principle again that I always tell people. You must know what your body needs. And that requires a study and reading and understanding food, nutrition, and health science. And in the age of the internet, there's no reason for anybody to be ignorant. That information can be found online. I've asked Dr. Hannah when she to do something in the month of July where she'll be dealing with principles of health during the Divine Hour service. So that would be of a seminar, I guess you would say, just so we will understand this. There's real common sense in dietetic reform. The subject should be studied broadly and deeply. No one should criticize others because their practice is not in all things in harmony with his own. So if John is a vegan, he's saying he mustn't criticize me because I'm not a vegan. I'm a lacto-ovo, let's say. These are hypothetical situations. It is impossible to make an unvarying rule to regulate everyone's habit, and no one should think himself a criterion for all. In other words, don't try and have one principle of dietary practice for everybody. That's what she's saying. Not all can eat the same things. Food that are palatable and wholesome to one person may be distasteful and even harmful to another. Some cannot use milk while others thrive on it. Some persons cannot digest peas and beans, others find them wholesome. For some, the coarser grain preparations are good foods, while others cannot use them. Taken from Ministry of Healing 319, 320. So what she's saying is this: do not make it that everybody must do this. The other thing is this, and she made mention of some people are allergic to wheat. Some people are allergic to soy. Now, whether some say because it's genetically modified or not, that's another thing. You use what you have available. If you only have the genetically modified soy and the products or the meat analogs are made from genetically modified soy, I'm not saying they are, that's a hypothetical situation, and someone eats the meat analogs or vegetarian meat and they're allergic to soy, you know what happens? It will create problems for them. And so what she's saying is this, and I'm going to the best of my recollection, in 2003, 4, somewhere up in there, when Dr. Hanna and Dr. Higgs came to Eleuthera at the James Sistine Church, they made a statement. They said, do the best that you can with what you have where you are. That's an important principle we have to remember. An individual must do the best that they have. So someone, the best that they may have is a little white rice and some corned beef. That's all they can find during these hard, difficult times. Somebody give them a couple cans of corned beef. Then you tell them do the best that they have. You feel that the diet is inadequate, fine, help them do better. But don't tell them all the dangers of white rice and corned beef. So the question is, okay, that's not the best for me. What am I to eat? I don't have the money to get anything else. I don't have the money to buy anything. Somebody is giving me this. This is what government gave me. You tell me I mustn't eat it, but you're not giving me anything else to eat. That's basically what she's saying. Another principle, do not use her writings as a test of faith. Very often persons err in this and they say, well, Ellen White says, and they hit you over the head with it, and that is it. I'm coming to more to the main line. What was drug use during Ellen White's time? And for that, I'm going to stay in the browser for a little while. And let's look at something. 7 of the most outrageous medical treatments in history. These are things that were practiced around the time that Ellen White wrote. So when she speaks, and she speaks so strongly against drugs and some of the practices, let's go back to her time. This is where George Knight's books come in, and see what she was speaking against. And I'm going to summarize some of this for you. You had snake oil extracted from the oil of Chinese water snakes. It likely arrived in the US in the 1800s. You had all sort of, we call it Quakery today. So this gives you an idea. Look at this one here. This fella took his newfound knowledge on the road, performing a show-stopping act at the Chicago World Fair in 1893, where he reached into a bag, grabbed the rattlesnake, cut it open, squeezed it. He labeled the extract snake oil, even though the Food and Drug Administration later confirmed that his products didn't contain any kind of snake oil, rattlesnake or otherwise. That didn't stop other unscrupulous doctors and fraudulent salesmen who also started traveling the American West, peddling bottles of fake snake oil, giving a truly beneficial medical treatment a bad name. Let's look at something else. You're gonna have to ignore the stuff. But I'll put this on YouTube again for those of you who are watching. And so, the cocaine wonder drug. Look at this, toothache drops, instantaneous cure, 15 cents, Lloyd Manufacturing Company. 1880, they were able to extract the active ingredient from the coca leaf, which today we know as cocaine. It was fast-acting, relatively inexpensive stimulant. Somebody discovered a few drops of cocaine solution put on a patient's cornea, acted as a topical anesthetic, numbing it. So it made the eye immobile, desensitized the pain, caused less bleeding at the site of incision. So they had to do eye surgery, so they dropped a few drops of cocaine, numbing it, and they operate. So sewing cocaine was used in both eye and sinus surgeries. And it was marketed as a treatment for toothaches, depression, sinusitis, lethargy, alcoholism, impotence, means you cannot have an erection or whatever. Cocaine was soon sold as a tonic, lozenge powder, and even used in cigarettes. That gives you an idea. You didn't need a doctor's prescription to purchase it. Vibrators, cure for hysteria. I think everybody knows what a vibrator is. The catch-all for female disease known as hysteria, number of maladies, anxiety, irritability, sexual desire, insomnia, you couldn't sleep, faintness, bloated stomach. So every woman showed some symptoms, or almost every woman had some of these symptoms. They used a vibrator on her. It traced its roots back to medical theories about the wandering womb, where the uterus was displaced. Pelvic massage was another reason it was used for. Miracle pill for weight loss, that's another one. And it seemed to have had some success. It was approved in 1996, a one-year trial, but then they started looking at the effects that came in. And so what did they do? 1997, they pulled it from the market, saying, no, it's not safe, don't use it. But it was a major thing, and people swore by it. Of course, the lawsuits that followed encouraged them to withdraw it from the market. Heroin, a cure for the cough. How about that one? That's what they were using heroin for. Hacking away troubled brains. Okay, you can see in this picture here, so I can get rid of the ad for you. Okay. They're working on this guy's brains. Hopefully he was under anesthesia. Notice, what do you notice? Nobody has on a mask, including your nurses. And I'm coming to this as to why the US medical science lagged behind the European later on. But this is what we would call the quackery that was going on when she wrote. Drilling holes in the top of the patient's skulls. It later evolved into hammering an ice pick-like instrument through their eye sockets to sever the connections between the frontal lobes and the thalamus, which was the part of the brain that dealt with human emotion. First procedure was performed on a live patient. Okay, this is much later. Shock treatments, the cure for impotence. And impotence was thought to be cured by an excess of sex or masturbation or too little of it. So, practical treatment on impotence. Okay, that's the long name of the book. Okay, they were very long. So they had bathtubs filled with electrodes, which was supposed to restore sexual desire in just 6 sessions. Sometimes rods with currents were placed inside the man's urethra. That's the tube from which urine comes. Just a thought of that. Treatment would last for 5 or 8 minutes, repeated once or twice per week. I think you get an idea as to some of the stuff you'll be looking at. Let's look at another one then. Okay, skip that one. Some medical procedures we're glad that history forgot. Let's look at some. What do you see here? Waterboarding. I think the U.S. Supreme Court has called this criminal. You're not even allowed to practice it on persons' birth. Let's look at some of these. Leeches, I know they still use that. Leeches, is it leeches or what's the thing? Yeah, I think it's a leech they use, which will suck the poison out of the blood and it eats dead flesh. So if you have a sore that won't heal and it's spreading, they will literally put a leech on it, because I think it's a leech. If it's not a leech, it's another animal. I don't remember the name. And it eats away the dead flesh. It only eats dead flesh and then it stops. So I've seen that. Medical treatments still do that today. But bloodletting, they cut you and let the blood drain. What happens when you lose so much blood? You die. One US president succumbed to that. So persons with mental health disorders, a wet form of shock therapy, hydrotherapy or the water cure, they held them underwater until they lost consciousness, after which they were considered cured of their madness, provided they could be revived. This is the world in which Ellen White was speaking about. Dunking or showering reclining patients without warning. So you know a lot of people drown. Whatever that word is. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. A fellow had erectile impotence. He could not have an erection. He could not maintain it. So what did they do? They replaced his testicles with those of a monkey. Few of his patients objected to toting around animal gonads. For one thing, they were told that their new testicles had come from inmates, not primates. For another, many patients died from the procedure right off the bat. Another one, several cats were lined up and tied inside a long box with their tails immobilized, placed through holes near a keyboard. Like a conventional piano, this one had keys that, when pressed, controlled hammers. The hammers were set up to strike the cat's tail with sharp points, causing them to emit the sounds you'd expect cats to make. Playing this thing was meant to lift one's mood, according to the German medical scientists, best known for the use of the contraption. Purposeful malaria. Heat could kill syphilis, and a fever generates heat. So in order to induce a heat-generating syphilis-killing fever, all you needed was malaria. So what did they do? Hoping to end psychosis, mental and cognitive dysfunction brought on by untreated syphilis, he began injecting syphilis-infected patients with malaria. I think all of you know that's a recipe for disaster. And the final one I'm going to share with you. What was healthcare like in the 1800s? Now, okay, here we go. So now, okay, good. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but I'm just sharing some of it with you. One, they did not have a proper understanding of disease and other bodily afflictions. They didn't have that. Things were not done on a scientific basis, where they look in a lab and they look under microscope and say, yes, these are cancerous cells. No, these are not cancerous cells. These are this type. You're not dealing with that there. One, it is believed that disease was caused by an imbalance or disturbance within the body. A miasma or foul odor in the air, or an evil spirit or contagious disease, or a number of outside influences could bring on that imbalance. So, how do you get rid of it? By removing it. How do you remove it? The mouth, the nose, the rectum, or the skin, using various drugs or by removing blood. So you let out the blood in order to let out the poison. Problem, you lose so much blood, you know what happens? You die. This is the sort of stuff that was going on, which she took strong exception to. And this is the section I made mention of. Most doctors were trained in Europe, or persons, let's just leave it at that. So letting nature heal, and the whatever that word is, of symptoms had become hallmarks of the best trained. Most were educated, so on and so forth. Most people did not consult doctors who charge high fees, relying mostly on home remedies, midwives, local folk healers, or in the case of African Americans, the obeah conjurer. Some of it still happens today. They charged less, offered remedies that mimicked the orthodox, and they were admired and respected. And this is where, in the Bahamas, we call bush medicine, you have to be careful. Because some have been tested, we will say. Others have not been tested. There are some persons who will take a bush and say, oh, this is good for ABC. It may work on them, it may not have worked. It may have been the body just healed itself. How do you know? Is there a drug interaction? Remember, all things are boiled on the chemicals, just like food. You can take any food and put it in a lab and analyze it and tell what the chemicals are. So that's what they do on the label. They say X percentage starch, so many grams of sugar, salt, vitamin D, A, etc., etc., etc. You can do the same thing with any bush medicine. Most pharmaceuticals start off from plants anyway, as a matter of fact. Most people don't know that. And so because somebody says this will work with this or that, that doesn't mean it's true. You need to find out if there's a track record of someone using a particular plant. I have a book at home, if I haven't loaned it out, The Healing Wonders of Herbs and The Healing Wonders of Water, where they say it has been tested. Uchi pines, for example, can give you a track record, they would tell you, of having used different herbs and different stuff, sometimes as teas, in treatment of certain diseases. But they will also find out what medications are you on? What other sicknesses do you have? And then they will try to ascertain, will this particular plant cause an interaction or affect something else? That's the way you do with medicine, because a plant is simply another form of medicine. If you look at it, it can interact with something else. You can't just take any 2 or 3 bush and put them together and say, drink this. No, they can interact and cause an adverse effect. During Ellen White's time, they didn't have that knowledge, and that's important. So the idea of germ-causing disease was first introduced, saying science did not apply to American medicine, the science of it. Americans, they insisted, were an exceptional people. That's when they started to understand what is a germ, how it's done. So we find Ellen White talking about telling the women, cut their dresses so they don't sweep the filth off the street, because they had these long trailing dresses that as they walked, it just collected everything behind them. Then you went inside and sat down in your chair. Can you imagine having a garment? I've seen 1 or 2 pastors still do that today, where the pants lick the floor. Imagine them going inside the house, their house, with that, and that touching the carpet, and little baby come, daddy, holding the leg. Thing makes me cringe, but she said, cut it, don't sweep up the filth. But they didn't have that understanding. She didn't have the understanding of it back then that we do today. So let's look something a little further then. So with that basis in mind of drugs, how it was operating and everything, what was the understanding of vaccines? Let's look at the vaccines that were available during her lifetime. Let's do that. And I'm going to show you, okay, we're still on. I'm trying to see which screen. Okay, good. Here's another one. And we'll post it in the stream also. They're saying, okay, I think they can see the screen now. Here we go. Okay, look at some of the vaccines. History of vaccines, and we're not going to go through all of these. These stuff have been around for the longest. By the way, one of the reasons why I don't think your body's immune system can deal with a lot of these, you can definitely say that back in the I lost, okay, here we go. That these stuff were manufactured. People didn't have the knowledge to do it. Look at when measles and smallpox were out. From 910, I'm assuming it's 80, I'm not sure. Yes, 910, 80, they were dealing with these stuff. Smallpox epidemic, I'm going to fast forward. The human body was not able to deal with it then. We can't. Okay. So it's still not. Could put my screen back up, please, whichever one is showing. History News Network. Okay, let's close the others. Okay, there we go. Thank you. So, give me a second. I should have done this some time ago so I can see what you see. Benton, come for me, please. Make sure and mute that. I'm getting feedback. It's creating feedback. Mute the phone. Here's the history of vaccine. Let's go straight to the time when Ellen White lived. Turn it down, anything. Rubella, German measles. Oh, variolation. Let's see if I can make this a little larger for you. Here we go. Variolation is when they would take the disease from maybe someone's skin or something and put it on someone else because it's a milder form. Let's say if you had, I'm trying to remember, you had smallpox, but you had recovered or you're in the process of recovering. They would take the scales or whatever from you and put it on someone who had it so that it would help trigger the body's defense mechanism. Thank you. That's variolation, which is the forerunner to modern vaccine, if I can put it that way. Infectious nature of diseases shown. Come on now. Okay. Okay. Let's go straight to the 1800s. Protection by cowpox. Persons who got cowpox from the cow found that they were pretty much immune from smallpox. Smallpox as war breaks out. Smallpox becomes a weapon of war. Mandatory. People who are in the army had to be mandatory vaccinated. Yellow fever. New York doctor. Let's go 1800s. Okay. Waterhouse brings vaccinations to the States. Russian emperor encourages vaccination. Vaccinations versus variolation. If I can look this up quickly for you. I'm going to Wikipedia. Okay, you can see it. Obsolete method of immunizing patients against smallpox by infecting them with substance from the pustules of patients with a mild form of the disease. The disease then usually occurs in a less dangerous form than when contracted naturally. So that was a way of helping make sure. It's, like I said, the early version of vaccination. You can finish, look it up at another point. So we're going back into the 1800s. US president started promoting it in 1806. Somebody dies, birth of Pasteur. Ellen White was born in 1827. Diphtheria, Pasteur observes rabies. Remember Louis Pasteur? Method of increasing potency, rubella. Notice these dates now. I want you to pay attention to these dates and see when some of this stuff was just coming about. So modern medicine as we know it today really didn't exist in her day and time. We're not interested in his marriage. Mandatory vaccination in the UK. But in the US, they were pretty much rejecting the science that was happening in the UK for whatever reason. Vaccination law passes. It's nothing new. And the reason for it is because people were dropping down like flies from these diseases. They had no way of curing them. They didn't understand them. Looking at it under a microscope and these 2- and 3-phase trials that we do, none of that existed. California, biology of fermentation. Death of spontaneous generation. Spontaneous generation was like one time I saw a fish in a well that we used to draw water from. And I asked my neighbor, an adult, said maybe somebody put it in there, so maybe God created it and put it in there. I couldn't say hers was wrong either. But spontaneous generation said that something just poof happened and it just came about. That's a very broad thing. So look at some of these now. Animal vaccine, they started experimenting. Here's another one. I didn't look up this one, so I won't have much information. Animal vaccine brought to the US. Remember I said Europe was leading. America fell behind in terms of what we would call modern medicine because they felt they were the lead, their immune system was strong, they didn't need it, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And they paid the price. German vaccination law. Efforts to increase vaccine production. So these were time. Anthrax investigation. You had yellow fever, Native American tribes affected. First laboratory vaccine was which date? 1879. Nothing like what we have today. And so I said all of that to say, what we are dealing with today, she wasn't speaking about because the principles didn't exist, a modern vaccine. If you don't understand it, I suggest you Google it. How are vaccines made? Information is there. Look at the different vaccine. I posted something in a church group. You can Google it and find out the side effects of all vaccines in the US at least that we have so far. Well, maybe worldwide, I don't know. They all have side effects. All pharmaceuticals have side effects. That's just the nature of it. 1881, bacterium discovered. What is a bacteria? And a bacteria is different from a virus, by the way. They're all living entities, but they operate differently, they survive differently, they feed differently. A bacteria can survive outside the body. You can put it on additional dew. You have mold, that's a form of a living entity that will survive and continue. England uses vaccines from calves, 1881. Sorry. Landmark anthrax vaccine study, smallpox progression. I think polio is still around, but they're trying to stamp it out. That's one of the things Bill Gates is working on. And every time they think they finish it, it seems to come back someplace else. In the Bahamas, you don't even hear about it because children are vaccinated against polio at, well, not by say birth, like before they're 1 or 2, somewhere up in there. You got to ask the mothers if they can remember, but they do it at a very early age because it's a crippling disease, which you basically don't recover from. Rabies success with dogs announced. So this just gives you an idea, some of the stuff and as they invented it over a period of time. I want to go back to my other slide at this point. And I'm going to stop that share and do another share. Here we go. When the medical school was established in Loma Linda in the early, they say 20th century, that's the 1900s, okay? Naturopathic colleges were increasing. Until in 1930, there were 20 with more than 10,000 practicing naturopaths in the United States using natural remedies. So, but Ellen White had by then adopted the emerging germ theory and directed that the college at Loma Linda should become fully licensed as an allopathic medical school, meaning you embrace all. A prophecy that this college and its graduates would become the envy of other denominations has certainly been fulfilled. Let's move here. While there are many problems with modern medical procedure, there's much more gain than loss. To revert to the 19th century, that means 1800s medicine, based on Ellen White's understanding at the time, is unfortunate and detrimental to the progress of our spiritual message. Remember, I took you through that process for a reason. When God gives an inspired writer a message, that doesn't mean that's the end and you stop there. Look at the Bible as a guide. He gave the message of the Messiah to Adam and Eve, just said the seed of the woman. Ellen White says, Adam thought it would have been Cain. We know it wasn't Cain. Jacob said he'll come from Judah. Later on, Isaiah said he'd be born of a virgin. And the title that he would be divine, we understand that better now. Later on, it said Bethlehem of Ephratah. And it just goes on. Gradually, the information was revealed. If they had simply stopped, like the Sadducees, who only dealt with the 5 books of Moses, they rejected everything else. You see what it leaves them in terms of the Messiah. They have to start conjuring up their own ideas as to what the Messiah would be like. If they just stop with Moses, since they know Moses spoke to God. They know God gave Moses the 10 Commandments. We cannot afford to stop at what he gave Ellen White and say God did not reveal any more knowledge about medicine and naturopathic after he spoke to her. That is not the way God operates. He has continued to speak, and he continues speaking to the human family, period, today. In the same way that, well, I'm coming back to that. Let me not go there now. So the truth of God is progressive, and this is coming from the wider state. It is always onward, going from strength to a greater strength, from light to a greater light. Look at the Reformation. What if we stop with what Martin Luther discovered? What if we stopped with the Anabaptists? I don't know. Anabaptists were those who were baptized twice. Would we have embraced the baptism by immersion if we just stopped with Luther? It's the same thing. When you deal with inspired writer, God doesn't give them everything that you need. No, it unfolds gradually. Now, let's look at something here. I'm almost at the end. You asked for definite and concise information regarding what Sister Wright wrote about vaccination and serum. The question can be answered very briefly, for so far as we have any record, she did not refer to them in any of her writings. Let's go on. You will be interested to know someone wrote the White Estate, and they this was the answer to it. Okay. I'm just making sure, checking YouTube. Persons were having some problems. She says, you would be interested to know, however, that at a time when there was an epidemic of smallpox in the vicinity, she herself was vaccinated and urged her helpers, those connected with her, to be vaccinated. In taking this step, Sister White recognized, this is one of her secretaries, well, this is written in 1911 to her son, J.E. White. I'm mixing up my documents. She recognized the fact that it had been proven that vaccination either renders one immune or greatly lightens its effect if one comes down with it. She also recognized the danger of their exposing others if they fail to take this precaution. This is the lady who wrote the story of our health message, D.E. Robinson. And I'm going to pull up something else on x-rays and whatever else in a moment. Oh, yes. She says, for several weeks, I thought I had the link here. Apparently I don't. For several weeks, I took treatment with the x-ray for the black spot that was on my forehead. In all, I took 23 treatments, and these succeeded entirely in removing the mark. For this, I am very grateful. Yes, letter 30, 1911, to her son. I don't remember who the J is. J.E. White. So she believed in using modern techniques as they evolved, and they were safe and the best that they could do. So she used X-ray. She was herself vaccinated, so obviously she would not be afraid of it. Let's look at something else. Okay. Someone's asked if she was not, well, suppose she was never vaccinated. Does that mean you should not? Here's her statement when she's talking about a diet that applies to vaccines also. She says, and this is manuscript release number 852 on clean and unclean foods. I covered this with Angliston some time ago. You can find it if you search for it in the White writings. It says, Sister White has not had meat in her house or cooked in any line or any dead flesh for years and years. And here is the basis of some people's health reform. Now I have told you, Sister White did not eat meat. Now I want you not to eat meat because Sister White does not eat it. In other words, she's saying, don't do it because I didn't do it. I would not care a farthing for anything like that. If you have not got any better conviction, you won't eat meat because Sister White does not eat meat. Eat any. If I am the authority, I would not give a farthing. You know, farthing is a small amount of money. Let's call it a penny for your health reform. What I want is that every one of you should stand in your individual dignity before God, in your individual consecration to God, that the soul temple should be dedicated to God. The short answer is she's saying, don't look at me. Make a decision as to what is best based on the information that you have. That is the principle she's enunciating. Another one, which for some reason is not in my notes, so let me go to plan B. She talks quite a lot about quinine. Okay. I'm going to put this one on the screen and I'll read it. I had it bookmarked, but for some reason I got lost. Let's share this one here. Again, this is coming from White Estate. Remember, she requested that at her death, they would compile her writings, persons would be responsible of it, and publish them and make them known, because some stuff was not published. Here we go. Okay, drugs and vaccination, 34B, ellenwhite.org. Someone wrote, prepared by Arthur L. White. I think that was either son or grandson, I don't remember. You make inquiry concerning, is not going to get much larger. Ellen White's statements relative to the use of drugs concerning vaccination. Persons are saying there's a gulf between what she said and modern medicine at that time. He's saying he don't believe it is so. Sister White, as she spoke of drugs, often used such qualifying terms as poisonous drugs, and of course most of the drugs used at that time she wrote were very poisonous substances, as we have shown you: heroin, cocaine, snake oil. These are the stuff she was dealing with. And they said one needs to do little more than turn to the medical literature of the time to have a clear understanding as to what she was talking about. And they make reference to the Story of Our Health message by D.E. Robinson. She believed in the use of remedies. She employed certain remedies in her own personal experience. She spoke very decidedly against the use of poisonous drugs. Now, of course, as we use the term today, any remedy in the form of a substance would be taken internally or injected. We call it a drug. So you have to differentiate what she was referring to versus what we refer to today. I think we must endeavor to find a definition of terms, and in this we try to do, in which we presented in Selected Messages, Book 2, Chapter 28, entitled Statements on the Use of Drugs. There are several statements which lead me to believe that the term drug as used by Ellen White when she condemns use of drugs as any substance which taken into the body leaves lasting harmful effects. You'll find a number of statements along this line on page 280, 282. She recognized the rightful use of anesthetic, which was just coming into its own. She made clear in the statement appearing on page 284, 285 of the book, Ministry of Healing, page 185, where she indicates that God guides the hand of the faithful Christian physician who puts his trust in the Lord. There are a number of statements indicating that Christ and the angels are in the operating room, standing by the side of the Christian physician. Now we know that at such time, the patient is under the influence of drugs, even to the extent that unconsciousness is brought about. Now, let's see, where's the quote? This indicates clearly that Ellen White did not take an extreme position. At one time, she wrote, drug medication as it is generally practiced is a curse. What was happening in her day, Selected Messages, Book 2, page 281. She urges, Counsels on Health, page 261, educate away from drugs. But what was she calling drugs? If you do not clarify that, you're misinterpreting her. Use them less and less. She said drugs need seldom be used. I think this is significant. Now, okay, this is whoever's voting is White, what he's saying. He says, I have not found anything in Sister White's writing which would teach that if we have faith, we would not need to use anesthetics or surgery. I don't know anybody. I heard a few people who get root canal without, I don't know how they do that yet. I've had several root canals, and that's not a pretty experience because the nerves, you think of how far the nerves is between your tooth and your brain. Just on your finger, if someone had to perform surgery without anesthesia, it's not a pretty experience. So what is it saying? And let me finish this, and then I'm going to make one or two summary statements and open up for questions. Those of you on YouTube, you can send your questions to, let me make sure I get it right. It's seminars@sbcadventist.org.bs. Seminars, put it in the chat for me, please. So persons on YouTube who are watching, they can send their questions there, and I will see them. You can text it on YouTube also, as the case might be. You asked about penicillin and other antibiotics. He says, Arthur L. White, in my thinking, penicillin is a natural remedy. Ellen White teaches that we should find the cause of the disease, then treat the cause. We know, for instance, that if a person has pneumonia, there's a certain germ operating in the body which causes the disease. In this situation, a product of the plant kingdom, penicillin, will destroy those germs. A reasonable amount of this penicillin introduced into the human body meets the situation, combats the germs, person is speedily on the way to recovery. He's saying, I think this is a proper use of the natural remedy. The one I'm looking for, quinine, here it is. This is a young minister. He had been sent to Borneo as a missionary. He had a wife and a little boy, 2 or 3 years old. The boy contracted malaria. The father knew that a proper amount of quinine would undoubtedly combat the malaria and save the life. But he felt he should not use drugs because Ellen White spoke so strongly against it. He refrained from using the quinine, and he and his wife watched a little boy die and then buried him. Sometime after that, when he was back in Australia, he saw Sister White. He described the situation, then he asked, Sister White, would it have been wrong for me to use quinine to save the life of my child? She replied, no. The Lord expects us to do the best that we can in meeting such situations. And this is the same experience which was referred to many years before. I had this conversation with somebody, and they gave the reference there. Okay. So that pretty much covers it. Arthur White. This one was 1964 when they brought all of this together. So, seminars, seminars at sbcadventist.org.bs. You can do there, or you can type your questions in the chat that you may have. Persons in the church can also do their questions also. We couldn't do Zoom, and the platform we're using is Stream, so we had to cancel the Zoom. Okay, questions, comments. And let's see if I have any questions. I'm looking. There are no emails as yet. Seminars Place it in the chat for me, please, on YouTube. At SBC Adventist. Same as the domain for the church's email. Yes, okay, good. Thank you. So you can send an email. Yes, question? Yes. Can someone take I don't need two mics, get the stand so at least the audience can hear. John, you can turn the camera on her. Or, I don't know, maybe it may be easier to come halfway in the hallway so that he can train the camera and he don't have to move it. So let's do that. Put the microphone there and everybody come to the thing and ask your questions. John, you would turn the microphone on the audience. You'll have to operate the camera.
This is actually a reading that says in Exodus 15 and 26 concerning the vaccines and all these diseases. It says, "And I said, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandment, and keep all his status, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians."
Which verse are you at?
This is verse 26.
Okay, thank you.
"For I am the Lord that healeth thee."
Okay. Let me say this, and this is where we talk about interpretation. If we take the position, God was speaking to the Israelites about a particular set of diseases that the Egyptians had experienced. Just turn the camera, don't worry about it. You need to understand that he was speaking to them in a particular context. This is not to say that anybody who gets sick, they got sick because they were not obeying God. Because then that implies that all of us weren't obeying God. Because everybody in here at some point or the other has gotten some ailment, whether it was a cold, a flu, or something of the nature, whether it is cancer or all of us at some point or the other have gotten sick with something. So that is not saying that. We cannot interpret it to mean that way. That was the belief of that they said about Job. Because he disobeyed God, he did something. That's why all that problem came upon him. In the New Testament, in John, they asked, who sinned, this man or his mother, that he was born blind? Jesus said, neither. Somebody does not. The man who was crippled for 38 years, Jesus said because of his lifestyle, he was sick. But that doesn't mean that somebody does something. What do you do with the 3-month-old baby or the 6-week-old baby who becomes sick? Are you going to say that they were disobedient to God? I don't think so. We in a world of sin, we have been subjected to 6,000 plus whatever years of sin. Our bodies are not as strong as like Noah. I tell people, if you could take a cotton swab of almost any disease, let's use COVID, and stick it down in Noah's nose, he'd probably fuss you because of the irritation. He'd probably walk away in a minute and never get sick. Body would just fight it off. But then Noah was living like what, 800-900 years. These men had bodies. Today, when we reach 70, 80, we could hardly move around. There's a lot of stuff we can't do. We're sickly. We dying at 60, 70, 80. When people reach 100, the governor general come and give you a visit. In Abraham's time, you were still a young man. Jacob, you were still a young man. Well, sort of. Jacob died at 140 maybe. So I wouldn't say young man. But that just goes to show, so the body has been subjected to so much stuff that because someone gets sick, it doesn't mean that they're disobedient to God. No. Because then you're going to have to answer me, what did the 2-week-old child do that caused them to get sick and die? You can't say it's the parents. It's just sin. Sin operates and sin affects everything. Every sickness you have ever had, you have ever heard of, is as a result when sin came in onto our little planet. And it takes its toll on us. That's the bottom line. We find ways of dealing with it, but we're not always successful. And sometimes we just, I don't know, we just don't manage it. Okay. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, and I haven't received any emails as yet, so I'll just wait a while and see any other questions or comments on what I've covered so far. One of the things I would like to make mention, and I brought this out to some individuals, our bodies are not able to cope with some of these diseases, and good proof of that, anyone who has done social studies learned part of the reason why the Arawaks and Caribs were wiped out because they didn't know how to deal with smallpox. They had no immunity to it. And some of the other diseases that the Europeans brought to the New World. Go on CNN and look up the Amazon and COVID. Type them in Google together and they will tell you at one point, almost an entire village were impacted by COVID. Now, if anybody living in harmony with nature, I will say it is them. Not you and I. When we walk with the dog, we breathing in all the toxins from the car that just passed. And somebody who been burning rubber and burning an old TV, and somebody maybe a little bit of smoke or cigar still lingering in the air, and the food that has been genetically modified, and all the toxins and stuff. They say microplastics are now even in our water. They're finding it in fish. It's so small you can't see it. All of this stuff here, it's like, you really think you can get there? As I made mention, I tell them most people don't even know what they need to do to develop the body's immune system to even fight COVID the way they would like to, because they have not taken the time to educate themselves. Which food has the fighting properties that will strengthen the immune system? It's not any food. There are certain minerals that you would do, like they talk about vitamin D. Women, they say in a preliminary study that is not proven, preliminary study, that who have high doses of vitamin D seem to do better with breast cancer. But like I said, that's just a preliminary study. They need to do wider study and take into consideration all different controls and everything before they can say definitively. And they have to test it like on thousands of women and see, is it before or while they had breast cancer, taking vitamin D made a difference. Most of us are not willing to spend the money to get the wholesome foods, the foods that are not genetically modified, and then how to prepare the foods. If you have a question, just come to the mic, sis. All of that I'm saying we have to do. What is involved in the diet? If you look at the Mediterranean diet, you will see it is far different than ours, and it makes a big difference. So I'm saying we need to invest time in learning what to do, how to do it, what not to do it. Spin the camera the other way. Okay, it's working then. Good. So all of that comes into play. Go ahead.
Okay, with the food, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and greens. When you talk about you can't afford it. A bucket of Kentucky costs like $20, $25, $29, something like that.
Well, let's say 14.
A bag of apple costs $4.
Mm-hmm.
Celery costs $2 something. You know, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and greens.
Yes.
That's all you need.
Yes. What I'm saying, on the other hand, is this: which fruits, which vegetables are better at fighting off disease and strengthening the immune system? Are we willing to spend money to get the variety? You go in the food store, you can see a large variety, but are we using them? Are we getting the right amounts we need on a daily basis? When Dr. Hannah does, she's going to tell you how many serving of vegetables. So for example, do we know what nutritional properties we can find in oat, or maybe barley, or maybe wheat? Which one has more vitamin A? Which one has certain nutrients? I'm saying you need to have that knowledge. Then how do you prepare it? You prepare certain foods, you kill them. You kill the nutritional properties of them. Science has demonstrated that over and over. They cook it, overcook it. They look and see at the nutritional factors there. Do people know these things? I challenge you. Most people don't know it. Do they spend the money on all these different fruits, all these different grains? You're talking about, is it just wheat bread or white bread? What about the 7 grain, all of these different stuff? And again, the human body, yes, and then zoom in a little close, please, to the individual. The human body does not, the human body does not, human beings, do not know all of these things or how certain things are put together. We don't have the knowledge. We're not willing to learn. We're not willing to invest the time. In many cases, we're not willing to invest the money to get the plants. What's the difference between iceberg and romaine lettuce? Is one better than the other? If it is, why is it better? How much of it do you need to eat? After 6,000 years, we can't pull 80, most of us. Our body is not able to fight off most of the diseases that we're impacted with. Sin has taken its toll and the human body is just too weak. Don't fool yourself otherwise, or healthy people wouldn't be getting sick like they do. And some of it, before I take Carlene, is just genetic. You got healthy people, vegans, who do everything coming down with cancer. And you say, why? It's genetic. It's in their genes. And it ain't because they put something in. It passed on from maybe great Grammy, but it just developed in them. That has nothing to do with their sin. It has nothing to do with their lifestyle. The thing was always there, and something triggered it, and cancer came, and they couldn't combat it. The body tried. They did all the treatments, all the everything, still couldn't combat it. They succumbed to it. That's just the result of sin. Carlene.
Good night. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking me. First of all, persons might look at me and think, well, I'm a vegan. I'm not a vegan. I have a plant-based diet.
Mm-hmm.
Vegans is a religion.
Vegans?
It's a religion.
Okay.
Vegans, they do not, if you're a vegan, that means you don't eat honey, which I do. And vegans, they drink alcohol, which I don't. God has given us everything that we need to survive. For our health.
1 second for me. I'm hearing sound coming from somewhere in the back. Mute it for me, please. Thank you. Go on.
Disease does not come without a cause.
Mm-hmm.
With that, if we are not following God's laws of health, we are going to get sick.
Right.
He has given us everything that we need. And everything He has given to us is free. His way is free. Our problem is we are to be the lead in that. People don't know because we ourselves, many of us, are not living the lifestyle that we should, that God has required from us. Our nutrition, we fight to want to eat this way and that way. Satan has come and he has corrupted God's food menu. As we eat it off the tree or the plant or whatever, or even if some things are required that must be steamed or cooked, but we want to juice everything down, gravy everything down, season everything down, put all kind of stuff on it and still call ourselves that we're eating healthy. We want to purchase food out of a can and it's full of sodium and whatever chemicals that are in there to preserve those foods. And we want to say that we're eating healthy. We don't want to, we eat any time of the day. We don't set times for when to eat. We want to overeat. And we wonder why some of us are either too overweight or underweight. Something that we're not doing. God has set the plan. We have broken the blueprint of health that He has given to us. If we would follow His way, there would be no excuse, not one of us, as she read, but the diseases would fall on us if we would follow God's way. We would not have to be running after the ways of the world and their medicine, because there is false forms of medicine. When I say false, I mean in how we have the health plans and health ministries or whatever. Satan has corrupted, and he has his way of of natural health as well. We have all these naturopathics and all these people, and that's not God's way. You have the yoga, you have all these different things. It all seems so good and holistic and all of these things, but that's not God's way. And we're not teaching God's way how he says it from his word. And I'm not saying I'm quoting nothing from Ellen White. It is plain. It's plain, 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 plain. But we don't want to do it. And so if we do not want to follow God's way, then of course, then we're going to have to take man's medications. And that's just the fact of it. We already know the new star, which is nutrition. And that's a whole big aspect of health, the nutrition. That is how we eat, when we eat, and what we eat. If we get that part down, we good. That's excluding all the snacking in between. We like snack. Cut all those other meals in between. Our stomach, some people say, but I need to eat a certain amount of time because I'm diabetic, I'm this. But if you're following God's way, it will be fixed. Exercise. We don't like to exercise. The only thing we want to do is exercise our jaw. Going up and down, and that's the only push-up arm out. We don't want to exercise. We figure when I go to work, I walk from the car to the office. That's good enough for me. I have to walk up and down in my building. That's enough for me. Mm-hmm. No, we have to exercise. Have a regular regimen of exercise. I talk to myself on that one too because I feel guilty. Okay, water. A lot of us are not drinking water. We feel like we could drink colas and that's the liquid that our body is getting. That's not what God is talking about when he says we need water. We need water. We need pure water. And the thing about with water, there's so much different water out there. And if you have to see water, there's some water with ingredients in it. If the water have ingredients in it, then you know something wrong with it. Okay? We should be drinking soft water, pure water, rainwater, if you may. Okay? We have a lot of these bottled water that are, what they call it now? No. The new crave, come on. Alkaline. And people fail to realize alkaline water expires. Okay? So you could be drinking expired water. And that's not good. So we think just because we're drinking the water and it's pure and clean, come with the bottle and the bottle look pretty and everything like that, we good. You can do that, but still, okay? Okay? So with the water, there's an issue, and they think because the more alkaline it is, the better. I could go to the tap and I test that, and I could be alkaline as well. Should I drink my tap water? Okay? People test it. It's alkaline. All right? So, and they figure the more alkaline, this 8+. You don't need 8+. Okay? When it's 8+, you're in the danger zone. So people don't understand that with water. Sunshine. People working indoors all day long. Okay? Indoors, they're not going outside getting sunshine, and then there's a specific time to go out and get your sunshine. That's a time either in the morning, just when before 11 or something like that, before 11, and in the evening, okay, when the sun is going down. If you're not getting that right sunshine, okay, that's when you get the most vitamin D. And where do you get that vitamin D? Where is the best place that your body will pull in that vitamin D? It's from your back. Turn on your back and absorb the vitamin D. You'll get the majority of vitamin D right there. That's the center and focal point, the back, the lower back. That's where you get your vitamin D. So if you can't afford to buy the vitamins, you don't have to go to the store for that. Go outside, it's free. Okay? That's your sunshine. Then your temperance. We know that a lot of us, we're not temperate in a lot of things. So we might be eating healthy, doing all this stuff health-wise. But we're not temperate in our eating habits. We're not temperate in our drinking. We're not temperate a lot of things. Okay? Physically, even with the exercise, we overdo it. Some people, you wonder why he's so healthy, they've been exercising, and they fall out. Why? They're not temperate in it. That's why God says, be temperate in everything. Okay? Next one. After your sunshine, temperance, air. Lord help us. Lord help us. Lord help us with the air. Okay? Because now, since COVID is here, we cannot breathe fresh air. Our masks have to be up to our eye and below our chin. And so therefore, our bodies are recycling the same air in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. The same air. God help those persons who have to be indoors or in a set or wherever, whatever the case may be. Lord help them. Okay? Disease does not come without a cause. And if you fail to obey God's laws, you are going to get sick. So I'm not saying I'm against it. I understand because people have different things and you want to protect yourself. I'm not against that. But if you have to breathe your own stale, stink air all day long, you're looking to get sick. So if I have that there, so what's the sense of having windows, doors, and everything open and you can't even get to it? But you're breathing the same air over and over and over again. So everybody is required to go against that particular law in certain environments or within 4 walls. We have to do that. Okay? I'm not saying, okay, so that's why you go outside, get the fresh air, come back in if you have to, go back, go in and out. But you cannot for a long period of time be inhaling the same stale air over and over and over again. I mean, there's only 3 places in the body that air can escape. And there ain't too much people interested in the other one. You know, people say, I won't be breathing in that. Because if I gotta let it out, I can't keep letting it out that way. Only so much. Okay, that's only one way. Alright? So 3 places. And the two important ones gotta be covered and only one free to go. So air. Rest. A lot of us are not getting enough rest. We want to stay up all night. You want to do the man job, work, whatever the case, and whatever else we want to do our own pleasure late at night. Who knows what you be watching, you know, what you want or what you're playing, whatever you're doing. Late in the night, go to bed. You don't want to go to bed. You know, and sometimes our jobs require us, you know, force us into doing something that we have to stay up. I'm not saying that you're just doing it just for staying up safe. Some people just don't like to go to bed. So we're violating that as well. So we're not getting enough rest. And there's so much things that can go wrong in your body when you're not getting proper. People could go mental without having enough rest. Okay? We need our rest. And then, last but not least, but always should be first, trust in God. So even though we do all of these things, if God is not in it, ain't nothing happening. So we need the trust in God. There's so many people out there who don't trust in God, but they're following these laws. They're following those laws, but they don't have trust in God. So if we, as Seventh-day Adventists, if we follow our own laws, not as our laws, we follow God's laws and trust and to believe that He will make us well, I believe so. Like I said to you all today, I was not well for a couple of days. And like I said, violated some law.
So what was your sin? You was not well.
What was my sin?
Yes.
I know what it was. I can be honest. I know what it is, but I know I went to the master and he made me well. That's all. You know, because sometimes Satan is want to keep you down too. So I might not have sinned. I might not have done anything out of the way, but you know, because Satan doesn't want you to do certain things and keep you down, he causes sickness to come upon people as well.
You realize I'm being facetious with that question.
I understand you.
Okay.
I know you well.
All right.
I know where you come from, but I'm just saying. All right. So, but you know what? What did I do? I followed the laws of health. I went out, sun. I did hydrotherapy on myself, water. Okay, so water doesn't necessarily just go on the inside, but on the outside as well. You can do the hydrotherapy, right? I did my natural herbs and stuff like that. And sure enough, because my only 3 options was, when the doctors told me I have to take antibiotics, have surgery, and you know, or get the whole thing cut out, right? That was the recommendation that would happen. And then none of them was an option for me. And I said, Lord, and I prayed and I prayed and I said, Lord, I'm obedient to you. Help me. Help me. I want to be, I want, because I was to the point I was like, I got to go to the doctor. Because when I say go to the doctor, like really get something done. Because the doctor who I spoke to was a friend of mine who is a doctor. So I didn't go to a doctor's office. Let me put it that way. Because you're trying to save that money too. You understand? Because everything God gave me for free. So he gave me a free friend doctor. All right. So I followed those laws. I followed and I prayed and I trusted that the Lord would get me well. And I wanted a specific time to get well too. I said I needed to get well before Friday because I wanted to do an activity with my children. And sure enough, by Thursday, I was good and well and percolating. And I was obedient to his way. So I heard you say that a lot of people do not know what to do.
Most people,
most people, okay? Most people do not know what to do. So we need training. This is the training ground here. You said these places are supposed to be outposts. And so, and I'm happy that I can say that New Anglican is an excellent outpost. We try to get into the community. I mean, we may not have all the equipment and stuff that we may need and everything that we need, but we are doing it as best as we could with little that we have and with the people that we have. You see, so I believe that we're reaching out, but there's still so much more. And that if we can really have an effect by our lifestyle, it has to be our lifestyle. Like I always saw that shirt that they sell, be the sermon. If we are the sermon, because, it's more than just health reform. That's what it is. Health reform is just not diet. It's everything. It's the dress. It's, come on, y'all don't know? What's all this health reform?
Carling, I'm going to ask you to wrap up because there are several persons online who making comments I need to address.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, so it's a whole package. Health reform is the whole package. Okay, emotional, spiritual, all it's a whole package. It's not just diet. Okay, that's just a small part of it.
Okay.
All right, so I'll wrap up to give others a chance. I thought nobody else was talking, so that's why I was going on. Thank you so much.
Okay, as I shared at the beginning with you, and that is the ministry of healing. I remember I showed you some of the topics in the ministry of healing. As you can see, our prophetess was well balanced in some of the counsel she gave, and as you can see, she didn't just take one. The thing what I've said, new start would be good and adequate in a perfect world. We're not in a perfect world. Our world is very imperfect. The very food we eat has been tainted. The very air we breathe. They're talking about the red dust from the Saharas reaching the Bahamas. You know how far Africa is from the Bahamas? And that is reaching us. They're finding microplastics inside even the water that we're drinking now, very tiny. They're saying some animals actually have, when the water supply is, they're finding certain chemicals from pharmaceuticals in the water supply. Even the raindrop. Remember, the rain has to come through the polluted air. It's good, but don't think it's pure. The only way to know if it's pure is to look at it and test it and see, are there any chemicals in it other than hydrogen and oxygen, H2O? Is there anything else in that raindrop? So that's how you would basically be able to say. But just the fact that we die, scientists say there's no reason why the body should not continue to regenerate. It should just keep regenerating. They don't know why. That's a result of sin. To me, that's a type of sickness if you want to look at it that way. When sin came in, Adam stopped being able to live for eternity and he died. So what I'm saying is this, and I think Ellen White can support me on this. There isn't anybody, probably on the face of the earth, who can truly say if they live everything according to the laws of health, that's going to keep them from getting sick. For the simple reason, inside your DNA, in the same way my DNA determines that I'm the tallest out of the 5 children in the house. I'm the tallest one. inside our DNA, there are certain things that determine the color of eyes here and whether or not you have sinus or you don't have sinus. Inside your DNA, there are certain things, and there are a lot of things, most of it science don't know anyway, that will trigger that particular gene and cause something to start happening. So in the Bahamas, a lot of our women are coming out with breast cancer. We can't truly say it's because of lifestyle because we don't know. Let me move on quickly to something that was posted in the chat. I want to speak to it because I think it's necessary. They talk about foods. Foods, they say, prevent COVID. The only way to know if the food prevents COVID, you need to have a controlled study. You can't say because persons are taking it, they didn't come down with COVID. Well, I'm not taking those stuff and I didn't come down with COVID, so therefore I can say it's not necessary if I wanted to. The only way you can probably do that, if you take maybe, I don't know, 40,000 people, split them in half, account for all other variables, who has this, who has that, who's on medication. That's what they try to do anyway. Give half this particular diet, caution them about what they can eat, not eat, do, etc. And don't give the other half this particular diet. The stuff that was mentioned with lemon, cayenne pepper, etc., and then see if the half who is taking this specialized diet, if any of them come down with COVID. If you have, let's say it's 40,000, 20 get this diet, the other 20 don't. If 3 out of that 20,000 do not get COVID, then you can say with a certain amount of certainty, maybe a 99% certainty, after you look at all of the other variables that would have impacted, that this thing works. Then you look at the 20 who didn't get the special diet. What if none of them come down with COVID? Then they can say, well, it's not necessarily the diet because the crew didn't get it. If the other 20 who, and let's say 10 of them came down with COVID, then you can say, well, okay, this diet has a 10%, what they call it, efficacy or whatever that word is, to prevent COVID. That's how you do these tests there. And they look and see, well, okay, did this happen to someone or did that happen? Case in point, and I've spoken about it, but people are just not thinking it through. If someone gets sick after taking a vaccine, they say, oh, it's the vaccine. People have been foaming at the mouth and falling out from time immemorial. It might be the vaccine, it might not be. Only an autopsy and a detailed exam can tell you that. That's like somebody coming to church, Sabbath, coming, and they eat some of the veggie food and they get sick. Should they then say it's a veggie food that made them sick because they've never eaten that before? You see the logic? No. It might be they were just about to get sick and they just happened to eat veggie food. That's the difference. So you can't just say because 1 or 2 persons do something and something happens, that means it's this. No, you got to be scientific and look and see, is it happening? If it only happens with 1, it may be it may not be, but you just can't draw the conclusion on that. The other 2, someone said God's original plan, diet. Yeah, we went through the new start, but like I say, in a perfect world, that can work. We are not in a perfect world. When you walk out here, the air you breathe isn't perfect. The water you catch from the sky, how much pollution it has to fall through. The plant you grow, even the soil, even though the soil is good, how much stuff is in that soil that the plant is feeding off that might have impacted your plant life, okay? Everything that we're using, the pots that we're using, some of the stuff, I don't know how much, maybe very little, maybe it's not enough to impact. And you're cooking your food in. How was it made? Was it smelted? How all of these things impact. We don't use aluminum anymore. We tend to use stainless steel. Is there something in the process of making that pot that causes it? The non-stick, that's Teflon, that's a chemical. So I'm saying we're not in the perfect world. So we can't just say the 8 doctors because persons have been using them, and the fact that we are not living to 200, 300, 400 years shows us that the impact of sin and disease in our body, which we're born with, is taking its toll. So the 8 doctors are just not able to. Doctors who practice naturopathic medicine will tell you, in some cases, they have to give you what you call that thing for infection, antibiotic. They can use the natural methods, but it will be too slow. The stuff will spread too quickly. The antibiotic in the needle or whatever is heavily concentrated. that might be the equivalent of eating, I don't know, 50 garlics at once. I'm just hypothesizing, right? If you eat 50 garlics at once, it's going to take an effect on you. But they extract certain things and they give it to you in a shot. Will it have some side effects? Maybe. But the enough. Well, I had a little fatigue and a little chill for a couple hours and stuff. But I said, hey, the risk is great if I come down with COVID. Long COVID, you can't walk 10 steps. You can't breathe. Your memory foggy. You can't smell. You can't taste. Lasting a year. About 30% of persons get blood clot. They say somewhere between 16 and 30 who come down with COVID get blood clots. Those who take vaccine, the numbers are very, very small. They have them there. People who complain of blood clots, they take them in. Did you have a vaccine? All of them are not because of the vaccine. Some people just get blood clots for all reasons. They say that the risk of getting a blood clot from taking, I'm coming to you, I'm Silas next. Birth control, I was surprised to hear this one, ladies, is greater than the vaccine. And the women start saying, so how come you haven't improved it by now? If it was men taking birth control, it would come in a candy and it would be taste with so on and so forth. All stuff that we make come with, I'm thinking, let me take Cyrus. A lot of what I'm saying on YouTube is basically the same thing worded in different ways with what the word says. But just being a godly person doesn't prevent you from getting sick. I think Jesus has already dispelled that myth, and it was dispelled in the book of Job. If we continue saying that, then we're going against scripture. Go ahead, Cyrus.
Okay, I just want to touch on what the scripture that Sister Joyson read earlier. And you had mentioned that, before I do that, in Hebrews 13 and 8, Hebrews 13 verse 8, it says, Jesus Christ says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And then we go to Psalms 33 and 11. And it says, in Psalms 33 and 11, it says, the counsel of the Lord standeth forever, the thoughts of his heart to all generations. Now, you said earlier that because times have changed, and I'm not quoting you word for word, I can't remember. And if Moses, someone had put a swab up Moses' nose or something, the fact maybe he could have walked off and it would have, his body system may have, whatever, I can't remember the exact word.
Yeah, I use the example of Noah and those guys who lived for 600 and 800 years.
Okay, but if Jesus said, I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever, and nothing changes, what has changed?
Our bodies.
No, yeah, our body, but we have changed.
Yes.
We have changed.
Yes.
Times have changed. Times. But God is the same.
Yes.
And if God said if we do what he says, none of these sicknesses that fell on the Egyptians should fall on us.
Okay.
As a church, I think that we, as the Seventh-day Adventist Church, have a health message to present to the world, Pastor Williams. This is not what we as Adventists should be preaching. And I'm honestly, I'm appalled the fact that us as Seventh-day, our pastors and our church leaders are on board with a vaccine ban. This is the opportune time to preach a health message to a lost and dying world. No better time. But y'all ain't gonna stop taking that vaccine until one of y'all drop down there. For God forgive me.
Well, people have died from
No,
already.
y'all.
No,
One
no.
of y'all.
One of us?
No, Pastor, hold on. I'm not talking about one of our pastors. Then y'all will see the seriousness about it. People are dying every day from this vaccine, but of course it's kept under wraps because they don't want to alarm the public. And if it's presented to the public or it gets out there, people are gonna be in fear of taking the vaccine. Why would you take a vaccine for something that has a 97.3% recovery rate? I'd rather take my chances getting the COVID and taking a vaccine that has a bunch of questions attached to it. We don't know what's in this vaccine. No one can tell us anything.
You can examine it. It's not difficult.
You can? Can we?
I don't know. I
can-
don't have the skills, but you can take it and put it under a microscope and they can do it. See, what I'm saying is this. It's nothing secretive, like I tell people, and there are 2 points you raise I need you to address. They know what the ingredients are. It's not like it's only one set. People take any drug you can find. That's how come you have generic drugs, because you know why? They took Viagra, they took the AIDS medicine, they analyzed it, they saw what was in it, and they made their own. So any drug can be analyzed to see what is inside of it. That is old news. There's nothing new there. But you said something I want you to go back to though.
Mhm.
What are the diseases that came upon the Egyptians? See, God was speaking in a particular
Yeah,
context.
that's cancer.
What are the no.
Heart attack. All
You
these
don't see,
same-
the scripture doesn't say.
It doesn't say. But the same disease that we're having today. Obviously, the Bible is speaking about the same things that we have.
Not necessarily.
So
That's when I talk
when they did
about
autopsy,
looking at
when they did autopsy on
context.
some of these mummies, they found that some of these mummies died from diabetes, some died from heart failure, some died from cancer. The same diseases that we died, back then they just didn't have the scientific terms for it. And modern technology to prove what it was.
Right.
But it's the same diseases.
Right. Now, go to their lifestyle. Archaeology has showed some of the practices that they use. For example, it was recommended that horse dung or something like that would be used in the treatment of certain diseases. You know that's a recipe for
Okay,
error.
so it goes to show they weren't following the health laws.
Right. So what
So
we
they
say,
died.
so what I'm saying is this: one, we need to know what those diseases want, but we have some ideas, but it's still not concrete. The second one is this: the scripture, I think, is clear. People keep saying it, and I keep going back to scripture. We have to decide, are we going to accept scripture or not? Living a particular life is no guarantee that you will not get sick. That is biblical. Living a healthy life is no guarantee that you're not going to get sick. You got 3-month-old, 2-month-old babies, 1-week-old babies who are dying, who didn't do anything, who are being breastfed, who were sleeping and everything. So we cannot say that because an individual gets sick, they're not living a healthy life. That one is out the way. Christ said it himself. Why was this man born blind? They said because of sin. Jesus said no, it wasn't because of sin. That's biblical. We can't argue that. That is straightforward. So we have to look at it from that standpoint there. The last one, people are dying every day. We just lost a sister the other day from the Centerville Church who may have been treating it on her own at home, whatever the case might be, okay? U.S. lost over 500,000 persons, they say. Statistically, you can trace, and it's not that difficult. You can, if somebody wants to go in the morgue and count bodies, they can do that. But statistically, they're saying in the U.S., states that are not heavily vaccinated, their numbers are climbing. Those that are vaccinated, if they get sick, the chances of them really being hospitalized or dying are small. Statistically, they can show it. India is now saying, look here, we've turned the corner. It's not difficult, brethren. All you do, if we don't have access, you go in the hospitals and look and see how many persons are hospitalized. They're not hospitalized for anything. You take a swab, you look at it, you see what it looks like, you know what COVID looks like. You can say, definitely, this is COVID. That is science. We have all relied on science. Everyone in here who studied at a government school in the Bahamas took multiple vaccines. I dare anyone to challenge me on that. And there were side effects too. Every one of us. I remember the last one they said I took afterwards. I don't know. When my shoulder was sore, you can still see the little mark on it too. But the benefits generally outweigh the risk. That is the gist why all of us have been taking vaccine. All of us who have ever taken a pill, tonic, or anything, because the benefits outweigh the risk. That is the bottom line. People who take chemo, because chemo kills the cancer cells, unfortunately, it kills the healthy cells. But the goal is kill off the cancer cells, and hopefully the body can repair and rebuild the healthy cells. That's the basis for chemo. Same thing with radiation. Okay? So you have to balance the entire thing. John, follow with instructions of the videographer, please. You have to balance the entire thing. Sister Brown, let me see my notes. Go ahead. Is the mic on? Make sure the mic is on for her, please. A sister.
Okay. You said that this is not a perfect world, Mr. Williams.
Yeah.
But we serve a perfect God. You know what I mean? And in saying this, in our health reform, we could actually live to see the end of the world.
Some of us, we hope will. Some may not.
And then you're saying that with the people who were born blind and crippled and all the rest of that stuff, and the Lord said those things were done so that He would be glorified. In other words, that we would have what evangelism, healing, and all the rest of that stuff. You know, that we would pray for these things, that we could heal these people, and His name be glorified. You understand? That's the reason why He explained that like that.
Do you think that persons who were healed in Jesus' day, some of them still died of sickness? Do you think that's possible? Persons who were healed by Jesus and the apostles and others. Do you think?
Because what God does is perfectly done.
Okay. Remember, my premise is old age is a sickness. Before sin, Adam would have lived eternally. Old age came a result of sick, and old age, the body system's weak and heavy. But the last one, Elisha, the man of God, who healed people. Do you know why he died? Of sickness. The scripture says that. The sickness from which he died. Sickness is something that came as a result of sin. Until Jesus comes and changes his body, we can suffer from various sickness and ailments.
I mean, yeah,
just because we're alive.
We died from me coming in the world. We
headed for the grave. Very good.
But Moses died without a sickness. His eye was still bright and everything.
Senses sharp and everything.
You know. Fix this again. But then the Bible says we will drink poison and we will be bitten with these poisonous stuff and we wouldn't die. Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
God's power. God God, yeah, God's power. And God, but I know what I know. It's on. I don't know what happened. Okay. In hearing all of this, the situations that have been going on, I saw a little clip and it referred us to a website, VEARS, VEARS, which is a database where persons have been reporting their side effects as a result of COVID. Yes. Right. That was sent to me. And, it talks about this Bell's palsy, where you have this muscle facial paralytics thing. You talk about over 43,000 people going to healthcare facility for urgent healthcare for whatever reason. And then it also has, I guess, thousands of people with the simpler vaccine reactions, like, you have a fever, you have soreness in the spot, okay? It also talked about 19,000 people being hospitalized. You had almost 5,900 people who are related to deaths. And then it talks about in Israel, the clip talks about Israel, where many of their young people who they told to be vaccinated had this in what they call it, myocarditis. Okay, some heart condition they ended up having, but then they say it doesn't last that long. And it mostly happened in men. So I was like, okay, all these different things. We know that this vaccine did not go through all the step trials as it should. I'm understanding there's 12 steps. Okay. Right. Okay. And so my discrepancy, and within myself, I have been, I'm impressed to just wait a year or two and figure things out, because here it is, this vaccine has been in the making from around 2015. And they've been having these coronas from 2015. But from based on a document that I think you put in the church chat, the doctor said they have been working on COVID vaccine or medicine, whatever, cure for a couple of years, okay? And here it is,
they came up with this one with COVID-19 as a rush because of the basis what they had in the past. And this is a rush. Now for me, I find that anytime I'm in a rush to get something done, there are always mess ups. Something just don't quite add in, which I don't like nothing rush. I mean, yes, I know sometimes I do things in rush, but it could have been better, okay? But when we're dealing with people's health, I don't like the idea of this rush. There was one more thing I wanted to as it comes to, like said, there is a cause for most sicknesses and ailments that we have today because we are not following health laws. Yes, in the case of Job and in the case of babies born deformed, sick, there is still causes because I, as a mother, may not have been what I should have been. I might have been exposed, like you say, to different elements that cause birth defects, that cause other things to go wrong. And hence, it's in the baby, in the womb, okay? There are causes. And God has all things planned, and He knows. And trusting Him is where we need to get to be. And like Sister Colleen said, we haven't really, like said, been taking the health laws seriously ourselves as church members. We have lacked greatly in that area because we have been selfish in what we want to accomplish in our own lives. God has given us the principles. And I think a few weeks ago, I put in our church chat how the 8 laws of health was right there in Genesis at the very beginning. But, we never really saw it. And so God had it there from the beginning of creation. Throughout our lifetime, even after sin, it was more important. And into eternity, it will still be there. And I do believe in the healing of remedies, of plants and the like. And like you said, education is so important. So in 2017, I ended up with shortness of breath. Now I haven't been diagnosed with asthma or anything, but that first attack, I am convinced it was an allergic reaction to something. In terms of my eyes swelling, my face tingling, I had shortness of breath. And at first, people around me said, "Oh, you have asthma." But I took the moringa powder and made a tea and drank about 2 tablespoons of that powder. And by the time, as the doctor saw me in the hospital, I had no symptoms. And the doctor said I would need to get either EpiPen or the Benadryl, keep those on hand. And I had I think it was 3 or 4 episodes after that. And I took the moringa and it worked for me. But like said, what works for me may not work for somebody else. But I know somebody who had asthma. I know somebody else who had asthma, didn't have their pump, gave them that moringa tea, and that cleared them, that calmed them right down. And it is good for respiratory problems when you read the properties of it and the tea and the drink. It is good for respiratory problems. And just the other day when I was feeling funny because I had a sudden attack again in over a year, I hadn't had any attacks. But all of a sudden I had another attack and I took that moringa again and, prayed and say, "Lord, you have to deal with this." Hence, my trust was in God for His healing power over my life. And He did say that these leaves are for the healing of our nation. This is our medicine. That's Ezekiel 47:12. And so we have to learn to trust what God has given. And I do believe there is a place for doctors. They do have a place, and they do have something to offer. But because we fail to follow the plan, we end up with all of these diseases and the likes. And because we don't want to repent from where we are and get the help that we need to reverse a lot of these diseases, because I watched a clip with Dr. Day, and when she had her cancer, it was a lump. She herself did not take chemo because of what she saw it did to bodies, right? And so she went the natural way. But guess what she said? It's simple, but it's hard. Why? Because our taste buds have become so accustomed to how we have made our foods. To change, it is hard. Okay? So it calls for a lot of discipline, and we don't have, I even find within myself, the discipline that is needed there. It calls for full surrender and say, Lord, I know this is best for me. Let me walk in it. And so the greatest problem is, like I said, education and our selfish desires to have what we want to have, because this satisfies my tongue more than anything else, you know? All right. I want to say thank you again, Pastor Williams, for this opportunity that you've given to us and for putting on this program to give us a time to be able to share and so we know exactly what what's out there. So I want to just say thank you again for that. But like you said, this is not a perfect world, and we understand that. But we, like Sister Julius Joyce would say, we do have a perfect God, and He's been with us, and He's promised that He would never leave us. And if we are obedient to Him, He's promised us that He would keep us in perfect health. I mean, so I would go with God. And as you had stated about babies and all of that, there is a cause. A lot of times it's sometimes what their parents have done through their health and how they've, like how Sister Vernile was saying, how they carried that child, and some of that will affect. I think I've heard even Pastor Brooks had said when there was a gentleman who was promiscuous in his early life, the child was born blind, and the doctor told him, after he found it, the doctor told him that it's because of his promiscuity or whatever, however you say that. Yeah, thank you. So what we do can affect our children, and the Bible tells us that these things go on through generations. So, and then there are some things that come on, like how with Job, is so that God can be glorified. So we know that sickness does come, all right? But if we are obedient to God, either He will be glorified, and even if we have to pass on and not make it, you know what? It's so God has a reason for it. So it might be our purpose for us to pass, so someone else can be blessed, or even, yeah. So I just believe that us trusting in God and His way and being obedient to Him, and like you said, and it's true what you're saying. Even with and that's why my family, we try not to eat out so much, because even like you say, the cutlery and the pottery and stuff that things are cooked in. A lot of people cook things in what's the thing now? Yeah. Food. Well, I'm just saying, you know what? You see, that's why we line our stuff with parchment paper and stuff like that. Who knows when the paper do it? But I'm just saying, we do our best, and so God honors those persons. If He see you're trying to do your best, He's going to honor it, not taking it for granted. So that's why I'm saying that, yeah, there's a lot of things that we don't know when God winked in our, in our ignorance, because we didn't know any better. But once we know, when we try to do better, so I believe if we do, when we're obedient to God and we do the best that we can, He will keep us. So, that's what I want to say. So I just want to say thank you again for this evening. Thank you for the opportunity. And there's so much more. Like I said, we only scrape the surface with God's way of living. There's so much more. And I know, since I've been trying to keep it all, keeping the 8 laws of health, I've been more energized. my mind is a lot clearer, and I can remember all of those Zoom numbers and the passcode like that.
Should I say something here, please? It's confusing. They mix up. They mix up. It's